Yes, guys, welcome back to the Games Gone podcast. I'm your one, the only, Ali the presenter. And guys, today we go beyond the headlines and bring you real stories behind the sport. Today, we got none other than a world-class fighter. You may know him for his knockouts. You may know him for his titles. You may even know him for making people vomit on camera. But he's here today not to talk about the fighting world, but to talk about the things that go behind the sport. He's here to talk about the dark moments, the sacrifices, the dedication, things that you never really hear on camera. But guys, this one's deeper than you think. Whether you're a fighter, a creator, a footballer, someone that's looking for inspiration, this one's for you. Make sure you guys go like, comment, and subscribe to the Games Gone podcast. And I want to introduce my guest, the one, the only, Daniel Sam. What's going on, my brother?
Yes, bro. All good?
All good,
Thank
good,
you
man.
for having me on the show, man.
Yeah, and it's a pleasure, man. Seeing you in real life, you're very tall than I expected you to be. And you look very more scary in person, I can't lie. Yeah. But thank you for jumping on. It's a pleasure to have you on here. I've been watching your videos for a very long time. And I see the stuff that you do behind the scenes, stuff that you do on camera, fighting, training people, getting them inspired, and I wanted to get you on here today to talk about a story that I wanted to get you on here to talk about a side of you that no one really ever hears about, because we see, you like to inspire people, but I want the people to get to know you properly, but not the Daniel Sam, the fighter, the Daniel Sam in you.
Okay.
That makes sense.
I'm not sure they want to hear that, but we'll see what's in there.
But without further ado, make sure you guys go like, comment, and subscribe to the Games Gone podcast. And make sure you guys go follow up the socials too. Be in the link in the description. And yes, we're going to start. Firstly, Daniel, what made you start fighting? Talking about your upbringing, where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Ilford in East London. Spent some time in Hackney as well. What made me want to start fighting? I always wanted to. I wanted to do boxing. I used to watch Mike Tyson, Nigel Benn, and I just wanted to fight. I wanted to get into it, but I never got the chance to, the opportunity to as a youngster. My parents from the Caribbean, they pushed me towards playing cricket, and as a youngster, I played cricket a lot. Up to actually a high level, played county cricket until like 16, 17, and then discovered life, and then didn't really want to be wasting time on a Saturday, Sunday all day on a cricket field.
Yeah.
But I didn't actually get into boxing or Thai boxing until like 21. I went over to Barbados, and I was must have been about 20. I done some sparring with one of my uncles, and I couldn't touch him. I used to go muscle works 3-4 times a week and was big and strong, but then put gloves on and I couldn't lay a glove on him, and I realised, wait, then the size don't mean nothing.
Yeah.
I actually wanted to go to a gym and actually learn how to fight.
Yeah.
And then I went to a gym. When I got back, I went to a gym near here actually in Tottenham, and I started in it used to be KO gym in Tottenham, and then went in there, a big strong guy. I thought, okay, I saw the kicks and the knees and the elbows, and I thought, okay, forget boxing, I'm going to try this.
Yeah, you want to try this, yeah.
Yeah, and had my first session, got my nose bust in the first session. Coach put me with this 17-year-old, no disrespect to him, a 17-year-old fat kid, and I thought to myself, this is going to be easy. I was looking at Coach like, well,
I've got a very similar story, because even me, I tried the boxing thing. Nah, bro, it wasn't for me, man. Like they had a gym next to my house that just opened up, but then they closed it down.
Yeah.
I went there, I was like, you know what? They were doing like some deal where you sign up and then you get it was actually some cheap classes and that. So I went there, I was sparring with people my age. I held it down. I said, yeah, cool. And then they're like, cool, come here. They made me spar. I was 14 at the time. The kid, I think he was like 2 years, 3 years younger than me, but he was very good.
Yeah.
Told me spar him. He beat the shit out of me. I'll be real. And after that, coach told me come back next week. He was laughing because I got humbled. And after that, I didn't come back. Yeah.
Same with me. Got a humbling experience and then realised, no, you're gonna, I want to try this a couple more times and see, and then learn from it. Because the way this guy, split my nose within about 10 seconds, I thought, I got to learn this. Whatever he knows, I want to learn this.
So what age would you say that you started taking fighting seriously? Because you started at 21.
Yeah.
So what
Started
age
about
would you
20
say?
and then training, but it wasn't until I had my first fight in about 9 months and I won by
Okay.
knockout. I had my first amateur fight, yeah. Won by knockout and then was like, okay, I actually enjoy this, and then had a few more fights, and then I didn't take it proper serious until I fought Dylan White the first time.
The Dylan White that we seen today.
Yeah.
Oh, swear.
When he was back doing kickboxing, Thai boxing, he was down at Red Dragons in Brixton and fought him the first time and lost. And then I realised from that, like, I lost on points, decision fight, that if I'm going to do this properly, I need to make changes in my life and things I'm doing, and then that's when I started taking it a lot more serious.
Yeah, I hear it, man. I want to say what were some of the hard things that you faced during your early boxing days, if you can remember?
Hard things I faced.
Yeah.
As I said, before I fought Dylan, it was the hardest thing I faced was trying to train, thinking I'm a fighter and still smoking weed was one of them. And that was one of the things I had to change afterwards. I realized you can't do it. I couldn't be training and then think, okay, I've got a fight coming up, and all right, let me just stop smoking for 3 weeks before the fight and I'll be all right to then jump in the ring and fight. It don't work like that.
Yeah.
You got to dedicate yourself to it properly. I think that was probably the biggest change that I made. That there was something that I used to have to battle every time I'm training. Struggling to breathe in there. I used to vomit every Sunday for sparring. I'd run out the ring. Anyone who knows KO Tottenham, Sunday sparring was hard. And then running out the ring to vomit every single Sunday until I made certain shifts and changes, and then took it serious. But yeah, that was the biggest challenge to overcome.
Yeah. Was there a moment early on in your life, in your early stages in your career, where you thought, life wasn't going to hand you anything, that you had to work hard for it? If you can remember.
Just in general, I think, it wasn't like any particular hardships, but, you just realise, just experience of life that, no one's out there to do you no favours. Everyone's out for themselves. They're looking out for themselves, which is, justified. So you realise, okay, quite early on that, with no handouts, you got to get up and make stuff happen.
Yeah.
So it's just like that. And you learn when you're in the ring, it's you one in the ring. No one's coming to help you. No one's coming to save you. The referee's only there, to stop you from being killed, basically.
Yeah, literally.
And then after that, it's you're on your own. And once you adopt that mentality through training, and it hardens you to it, so you become more independent, more confident in yourself. Which is why I always advise people to, especially the youngsters, to learn some form of martial art or boxing just for that alone. And then through that, and you just, as I said, you see experiences of life and realize, you're on your own to a certain extent, and you've got to do it. If you don't do it, no one's going to do it for you.
You literally answered my last question at the end as well. My last question was, what would be your advice for someone that wants to get into martial arts? But you actually answered it.
Yeah, just make sure you try it. Just try it. Just jump in and try it for sure.
Speaking of being independent, I know fighting's physical. Fighting is a very physical sport. When did the mental fight get real for you, if you can remember that?
Very early on. But I had a very good coach who was very much focused on the mental side of fighting as well as the physical. So I learned, early on that as much as the fighting is physical, that's, in reality it's only 10% of the fight. The rest of it, 90% of it, is the mental side of it. Overcoming your fears, overcoming fatigue, all the self-doubt, the self-talk that goes into it, the mental preparation before a fight, or even just in training, just getting through certain training sessions is very much, like a mental, that's, the biggest challenge is the mental challenge. And I understand that and try and push that with my fighters and the guys that I train and make sure they're aware of it. They're aware of what their thoughts are, how it can be used to help them, how they can have positive self-talk, positive thoughts, and how to overcome the negative ones. And very, very big focus. But I learned that from very, very early on. My coach was, big on having me read certain books on, even down to I used to read lots of books on NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and how the words can, your own words can program your mind for positivity.
He's putting you on game, I'm not gonna lie.
It's a massive subject, the NLP, and how it can actually help. You see, for example, like athletes, for example, at the start line of a 100-meter race, and they're going through the mental preparation, and you can see them like talking to themselves, muttering certain things to themselves. And that's all the positive self-talk, or they might do certain things that that anchor themselves into their optimal state, like they so they're in the zone is what you would call it. But there's ways of tapping into it just through your self-talk. It's very, very important.
Yeah, because speaking of the mental side, there was a story, I think about Tyson Fury, where he accomplished everything that he needed to accomplish, and then there was a point where he had I think it was a Range Rover. He was gonna literally kill himself, and he was just talking about how depression can affect fighters in the real world, especially losing, especially overcoming injuries, and just little things like sacrifices. I wanted to ask you, has there ever been a time where you've had depression in boxing? And if you did, how did you overcome from it?
I wouldn't say there was, not in boxing, no. I've had losses, I've had big wins, I've had big losses. My coach always used to say, I was real resilient in terms of coming back from some of the losses. Because I kind of realised that although it's a fight, the fight's on, there's more to life than that. I've got kids, I've got children that, my own kids, but also where I was working at a youth project, there was a lot of kids that used to look up to me. So I knew that as much as I'm in the fight, there's bigger things out there. So I was always able to kind of pick myself up from some of those fights and focus on what's really important. There's a bigger picture out there. There's a journey that you're on as a fighter, and these are just stepping stones along that journey.
Yeah. And was there a point in your life where you've done what you needed to do, and was there a point in your life where you wanted to walk away from the kickboxing scene?
Yes and no. When you have like bad losses, I lost a world title fight in Basildon in front of loads of people. It was a big loss for me. That one. Then there's times when you go through certain fights and it kind of makes you question. Do you really want to do this? Or there's times I even question, am I good at this? And then you have to fall back on how much you want to do it. The love for the sport. And then, just confidence in your training that, no, you are good at this. This is what you do. You've been doing this for years. You put in the 10,000 hours to master a skill. And then, so once you put in those hours, it's just a case of building on it. So, as I say, it wasn't a case of quitting the sport, but just questioning, like you do all the time, certain things, just question, why are you doing it? What am I doing here? How did I get in this position? And then just knowing, okay, these are the steps I need to know to make something different. It's good to be aware of those kind of things, and then you can draw up a plan or just be aware of it so you can work towards making it better.
Yeah, that's true, man. That's actually very true. Because like there's a lot of people that actually need motivation to get what they want to do, and especially not just in fighting but just in life.
Yeah.
Especially like for me as a creator, sometimes when things aren't going well for me in terms of like when I persevere, it doesn't do well, or like when I had something planned to do, it didn't go how I expected it to be.
Yeah.
Sometimes like it's always good to sit down and reflect on not what you've done, but on ways to improve. I wanted to ask you, when the crowd's gone, when the fight's over, the lights are off, what's the silence like for you?
The silence is...
It's a deep one, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I think, yeah, it is a deep. What's the silence like? Yeah. You reflect on everything. You relive it when you're there in the moment. You don't get to, obviously at the time, in the fight, it's 100 miles an hour, so you don't get to kind of assess it at the time. But, you watch the fight back and certain things will come to you over time and you just relive it and reflect on good things, things that didn't go so well. You certainly think of, what if I did this, certain, moment by moment, you might, watch the fight and like, okay, yeah, I remember that, I should have done that. Or imagine if I just done that, just moved this or threw this punch or evaded this or done, X, Y, and Z. And so that's what the silence is like, a lot. But, I've had a good career, long career, I've fought all over the world. So I've got lots of good things
that's what it's about, man.
Yeah, so I've got lots of things that I can look back and, experiences that I can take from fighting in China or fighting in America or, fighting and training with some of the best guys in the world. and know that, okay, you know, I gave everything. I dedicated, you know, what I had to give to fighting, and then giving it on to other fighters as well. Me training guys, you know, you see in some of the videos, and taking those experiences from the fight game that I've learned myself firsthand and helping to train others. You know, so yeah, there isn't actually much silence. You know, there's always an inner conversation going on.
Yeah.
You know, that you deal with.
Yeah, I've got a question. Another deep question. What do you think is heavier? The fight being physical or the mental fight to prove yourself?
Fight being physical, the mental fight to prove yourself. I would say the mental fight, but not so much to prove yourself. And
I could forget the physical fight, the physical training.
yeah, physical training is hard, but you know, part of the physical training is mental, just getting through it. You know, waking up in the morning when your body's aching. I used to travel across to Amsterdam and go and train at Mike's gym. You know, some of the toughest guys out there. You know, you start the week on a Monday training. By Wednesday, your body's broken. Like, you're in pain, and you're waking up 7 o'clock in the morning to go gym. And that alone is just, it takes mental strength just to get up knowing you're going to go back to the gym. Your hands are still hurting from the last session. Your body's broken down. You know, when you get to the gym, you're going to be sparring with Alistair Overeem or Gokhan Saki, and these guys, they're monsters. Like
UFC fighters.
So, you know, as much as the physical training is a beatdown, that alone is also mental training as well.
Yeah.
So in all aspects, the mental side of it was always going to be the bigger, the heavier, if you know, if that's how you're wording it, the heavier kind of challenge to overcome. Just dealing with that, and you know, everything is a mental process of getting through and getting past it.
Yeah, that's true, man. I want to move on to the next topic. I want to talk about sacrifices, because there's a lot of people that need to understand the sacrifices that you need to take to do what you love to do. Like, I've taken a lot of sacrifices. Like, I've lost X amount of jobs to get to where I am now, and I'm grateful for it. I wanted to ask you, has there ever been a sacrifice that you've done, an opportunity that you had, whether it be friends, family, you know, going out, stuff like that, that you've missed, that you kind of realize, I wish I went there to get to where you are?
Yeah, there's lots of times that I missed out on family functions, family events, you know, meeting up with family, spending time with family, just to go training. You know, we used to train 6 days a week, twice a day, 6 days a week. So, you know, you can imagine there's lots of times where you're in the gym early, finishing late. Other than that, you want to rest, eat and rest. So there's lots of times, you know, people are like, oh, come to this party or come to here. We've got a family event going on. And, you know, that's part of the sacrifice. And for me, I started, as I said, I didn't start until I was 21, but I can imagine, you know, certain athletes out there that have started from, you know, 5, 6 years old, they're sacrificing their whole childhood just to follow their dream. But if you do want to get to that level, you know, the sacrifice is huge. You sacrifice everything about what you potentially could have been or could be doing on the outside just for that goal. But then you have to know to yourself, in order to reach that goal, you have to have that single-minded focus where nothing else matters. Absolutely nothing else matters. Your friends are telling you, come out, you know, come here, go traveling, go do this, go look at this, go see this. You know, you're not interested. You have to be on a stage where you're not interested. And that's how it was for me, you know. When I was in my younger days, I used to go raving a lot. You know, every other day of the week I was in a different club or party or trying to rave when raving was fun and was good. Not say it's not now, but it's a different, you know, it's a completely different landscape. But, you know, once you start fighting, none of those things are interesting. You know,
Do you think that was your biggest test? Times like missing out on all those things.
It wasn't so much a test because I enjoyed it. I love fighting. I love training. I love being in the gym. But it is a big sacrifice. It is things that, you know, you do miss out on. But when you've got that clear-minded focus, as I said, nothing else matters. You know, you're so focused on, that's what the goal is. I need to be in training. I need to get myself prepped and ready for this fight. Or, you know, if you're building a career as a fighter, you know, there's stepping stones along the way. So each fight is moving along. And once you've got that plan from when you start, nothing else matters. Girls, parties, whatever it is, you know, that's how it should be anyway. It doesn't even come close.
You know, you are a guy that speaks a lot of wisdom. You know, you are a guy that does speak a lot of inspiration. I mean, you're you are a person that loves to inspire a lot of people. You drop a lot of game, a lot of advice for young fighters to give them an extra push.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask you, what has been the best advice you've received ever? And if you have one, would you want to say it?
I've had loads of different advice. I was.
What's been what's been the best advice you've got?
Best advice? I wouldn't say there's been the best advice. Depends what the moment is or the circumstance. Because I'll give you an example. Like today, I replied to a comment on Instagram because we was at a fight show on the weekend. Only 2
I saw
days
that.
ago.
Was it the one where you
And it
fly?
kicked off.
Yeah. What
Yeah.
happened there?
It's a long story, but it kicked off in the ring, like between me and, well, not just me, like my fighter, the opponent, his coach, and myself, and a couple others. It just got, but we all know each other personally. Like I've known these guys for years, and someone said, someone commented that, as a coach, you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to be setting an example. And my response right there, based on one of the pieces of advice I was given when I was young, was I did set an example. The advice was this that I was given: if any man disrespects you, bust his head. And it's plain and simple. If a man puts his hand on you, make sure he regrets it. If a man makes you defend yourself or your family, make sure he regrets it. That's one piece of advice I was given. I won't say it's the best advice because there's different pieces of advice for different situations. My coach gave me years and years of advice. Like where we used to, where I was fighting, we'd travel to different places. He'd have me reading books and speaking about different iconic people throughout history. So I've learned lots of, as you would say, pearls, little gems of wisdom that I could say but it would also always depend on what the circumstance is as to what the advice is. But for the sportsman, I also look up to people like Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant who have that kind of single-minded focus and just know that if you're gonna succeed in it, you have to dedicate yourself to it. And that means, so one piece of advice I would say is it's got to be 100%. There's no half-hearted, cutting corners here or there or cheating yourself. If you know you got to be doing the work, if it's a 5K run and you're just cheating yourself doing a 3K run, or you're not doing the ab work or the neck work or the pad work, whatever it is, it's not going to get there. So you have to. That's probably the best advice I'd have then. If you're now thinking of it, there was from Arjan Vinny, and it's to have a professional mental attitude at all times. A professional does, that's actually what it would be. Professional mental attitude, a professional does what has to be done. An amateur does what they feel like in the moment. If they don't feel like doing the training, or they might skip it. They don't feel like eating right, then, they'll cut corners on it. But a professional does what has to be done. If you know this is what the fight plan is, leading up to the fight, you got to do 7 weeks of training. You'd have it written down in your diary like a professional would, and you have to follow it. Even if you wake up and you don't feel like doing that run at 5 o'clock in the morning, an amateur wouldn't do it. A professional does, whether they want to or not. You look at Floyd Mayweather, who had 300 or 400 million sitting in the bank and would still be out there training, would still be dedicating him to himself. He might be in one of his strip clubs and then decide, no, we're going running. And as he said, he'd go running in his Timbs, just because he knows, okay, I've got to get that work done, and he'll just go off and run, or he'd put the work in. So for me, that's what I would say is my best piece of advice, actually, having a professional mental attitude at all times.
Because I remember there was a story about Floyd. I can't remember, he was fighting, but he was training in Las Vegas, and he was saying that no matter what he does, he eats pizza, all these, like, he does X, Y, Z, but he was like, just give me 2 weeks and I'll put 100% in.
Yeah.
And he actually won that fight.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show, like, these little things, they eventually do pay off in some sort of way. And I wanted to ask you something, yeah? Do you ever feel like the world doesn't understand how it is to actually become a fighter?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. People see street fights or they watch boxing fights. You get the armchair experts. They're like, oh, he should have done this. He should have just thrown this punch. Or why didn't he block this? The armchair experts don't understand. And nobody would. Unless you've actually been in a ring in a hard fight, you'll never know what it feels like. You might, as I said, you might see a street fight going on and like, oh, yeah, he got knocked out. Yeah, I'm going to do this. If I get in there, I would have done this. And until you're actually in there, tired or hurt or even scared, and you've got a guy across the ring bouncing in front of you, trying to kill you, the referee's there trying to hold him back, and you're in that zone, you'll never understand it. So the world, exactly what you said, isn't going to grasp it unless they've been there.
Would you say the same thing if it was how much work goes into the sport as well?
Yeah, for sure.
You're laughing as well.
Yeah, of course. And that's also why I started highlighting some of the training that we do, because a lot of people think it's easy.
It's actually no. It's actually it's not. It's not.
Yeah, it's not a joke.
Not.
Like
you're making people vomit, man.
I get lots of guys. I want to come and train with you, and they come and do some of the training. Exactly what you said. They're throwing up outside the ring, or they're quitting after 1 or 2 days and realizing, wait, they're fighting is hard. And I learned that the first time when I went to Mike's gym and done that training with some of them top guys and realized fighting is hard. Physically it's taxing on your body. The training mentally is hard as well, just overcoming those thoughts and the negative thoughts and the pain and overcoming fatigue and tired, all of that.
Because you're getting punched in the face, innit?
You're getting kicked in the body, kicked in the legs, you're kicking elbows, kicking shins, and kneed in the head and elbows and all the rest of it. Muay Thai is everything goes apart from headbutts. Yeah. So, it's a hard game. And that takes a lot to get over, to get your head around mentally, especially when there's someone out there, same weight as you, probably similar experience, and they're training as hard as they can, to do damage to you. They're not coming to have a chat. These guys are getting in the ring, and this is why I make sure I train my guys. One, I train them as hard as I can, and push them to be their best, because I want them to win their fight, but also to come out of the fight unscathed as much as possible. But when you're in the fight, that's inevitable. Right? You're not going to come out of a fight that goes the distance without some kind of injury. Even if you win, there's a potential of injury. If you lose a fight, it's almost guaranteed you're going to get injured somewhere. There's going to be some kind of pain, swelling, black eye, sore ankle.
Even
shin.
if it's just not the physical pain, the mental pain as well.
Yeah, it's a lot. So, then after the fight, I advise my fighters to try and take 10 days off, just to, bring themselves back down, the whole energy, because for those 8 weeks training for a fight, you're angst up, pent up, you're building up your power, your aggression, and just so focused on the fight that you need that time to kind of unwind after the fight. And it's important that you try and do so because there's so much that goes into it.
Yeah. I've got something controversial to ask. Do you think the fighters of today have it easier than the fighters of past generations?
They have it easier.
Yeah. What do you think?
Yes and no. There's lots of things that are different about fighting back in the day. There's different rule sets. There's different there's different safety precautions that are put in for fighters nowadays that there wasn't back in the day. Athletes now, you could look at it from both ways. Athletes now are stronger and faster than they were back then. So, you might look at it and say, okay, well, the fights may be harder now because the athletes are better. If you look at all sports, they've all increased. For example, the 100 meters, the 100 meter world record 100 years ago, 50 years ago, compared to what it is now. So that shows you, that the athletes are actually getting fitter and faster and stronger.
Yeah.
Strength and conditioning is getting better. So, they're breeding better athletes. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's harder or softer. It's just different. But there's pros and cons to what make it. I'm still.
What made you open up the gym? If you don't mind me asking.
I always wanted to at some stage. When as a fighter, there's a certain level of selfishness that you have to have in terms of getting up to being a top level fighter. But I always wanted to when I had more time and I could dedicate myself to the gym. So rather than what I was doing previously, which was training myself, but also training at other gyms, teaching classes at other gyms, now that I've got a bit more time, I decided, okay, this is now the right moment for me to open up my own space where I can focus on training the fighters and building up the next generation, which is always something I wanted to do. But now I've decided, okay, now let's go for it.
Yeah, that's very good because at the end of the day, it keeps you tapped in, even if you was to retire. But it's still something that you can look back and go back and see these fighters who are up and coming. So you can train them as well.
Yeah, for sure. As you said, I'm still locked in. I still watch fights every day. Watch different techniques, re-watch old fights. I'm watching different fighters, the potential opponents for my fighters. I'm still breaking down fighters' strategies, fight plans, and what my fighters can do and work on, and seeing new techniques, new fitness stuff that they can do, things like just any little thing that can improve the game.
Yeah.
So I'm still a student of the arts. I still want to learn every day. So I'm still watching this, reading this, as I said, assessing, and seeing what I can do to make my game better as a coach, and also the fighters' game better when they're in there.
Speaking of fighters' game, in terms of the training and the intensity, how do you push fighters to go beyond their limits?
How do I push fighters? More touched on what you said at the beginning in terms of mentally. With the fighters, a lot of guys, they've got their physical limitations, but then everyone's got something that they can tap into, or like a key that you can find to tap into. Every person's different to get them mentally to push that little bit more. So some people it might be shouting at them, some people it might be reminding them of their family, other people it might be a slap in the face. That might be something that just gets them that little bit more angst, that when they thought they're tired, leaning on the ropes, had nothing left to give, you remind them about their son, and suddenly they just, a little bit spark of energy just comes out. Or you slap them in their face and suddenly they're itching and ready to go. Or some people, it might be a bit more passive. You might just encourage them a bit more and be like, okay, you can do this. You're not giving everything you've got. You can just coax them through it a little bit more. Others might be shouting at them, "You're shit. What the hell is this? Are you a pussy?" And they're like, "I'm not a pussy." "Are you a pussy?"
Yeah.
Like, "No, I'm not." And then that just breaks them out to just give a little bit more. So everyone's got that trigger point that you can find, and for me that's part of the challenge as well when I work with fighters. Okay, what do they react to? What gets them going? And then once you find that, then it's a case of harnessing it and building on that to get them to give 110% when they thought 90% was everything they had.
And would you say that it's the best way to educate fighters, well, in the ring and outside the ring, from obviously social media that you have now? Would you say it's the best way to obviously educate young fighters?
In what sense?
In terms of training.
Yeah, there's many ways you can educate fighters. I think the best way to educate the fighter is to have them look inwards and reflect on themselves. I could tell a fighter 100 times, you're good enough, you can do this. But until they believe it, until they see it for themselves, they're not going to fully grasp it. So I think the best way to educate a fighter is to get them to see it for themselves, get them to look within themselves, which is what boxing and martial arts does. It kind of forces you to self-reflect. And then through doing that, you learn, you get that intuition rather than that me, tutoring them. They'll get that intuition feeling when they learn it for themselves. They see, okay, this isn't working, I need to do this. Or they learn about themselves, okay, when I'm tired, how do I react? Okay, if I get tired, I like to switch off or look for the way out. Once they get aware of that, okay, this is the feeling, I know when I get to this point, this is what I need to do. But they're only going to get that from one, experience, and two, a good coach making them see it for themselves.
Yeah. And would you say you use that motivation to prove something to these fighters, or is it something deeper than that?
It's both. One, to prove it to themselves that they can do what I see in them, because it's easy to see from the outside. Same like when you're watching a fight, you might from the outside look and see that both fighters are tired, but one of them's crumbling, and you might be able to say, from the outside, it's easy to point out, look, he's tired, get him, step up the pace. But then it's a case of training the fighter themselves to be able to recognize that, in themselves, but also in their opponent. So as much as you can, all I'm trying to do is open their eyes to who they are, basically, is what it is. I'm just trying to get them to recognize what their potential is as much as I can. And once they see that, then they can feed off of that energy that it's going to give them.
Yeah, no, true say. So in terms of your social media life, you started TikTok, obviously training with these fighters too. I wanted to ask, people vomiting and people jumping out the ring when you're slapping them, is it actually real, or is it?
That's all real.
Is it actually real?
That's 100% real. Like, yeah, like what people are seeing on Insta and TikTok now is something I've been doing. If anyone knows me, they'll
You've
vouch
been
for
doing
that.
that before.
I've been doing this for 15, 16, 17 years.
Yeah.
Just now decided, okay, let me actually film a lot more of it and put it out there so people can actually see, okay, this is the behind the scenes that goes into it. A lot of people, they just turn up, buy a ticket or buy a pay-per-view or watch the fights on YouTube and see when it's under the lights, but they don't actually see the hard graft that goes in, the pain, the swearing from a fighter or from a coach to a fighter, the slaps, the vomiting. You're hearing fighters, I'm not doing this, I'm quitting, I don't want to do this no more, leave me alone. They don't see that side of it, and that's what I wanted to highlight a lot more, just so, people get an understanding of what it takes and what goes into being a fighter, which is why fighting is, the hardest sport there is.
Yeah, because I've looked at the comments. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, I wish this guy was my trainer. This is how training should be in today's world." Do you ever look at the comments and be like, "Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, she's right.
Yeah,
He's right."
a lot of the time. Yeah, because I get lots of comments of people DMing me. I wish you was my trainer. If you ever come to South Africa or you ever come to Vegas or you ever come to, I get loads of these, Australia, Singapore, wherever it is. Come here. I want open a gym or can you train me here? I'm like, okay, yeah, something's working, and people are seeing and realizing, this is another level of training that they might not be experiencing because not everybody pushes themselves to go through that. And, but that for me comes from my experience of being in hard fights and seeing what it's about. I'm not saying living what it's about and knowing, okay, this is the level you need to be at and trying to get my fighters to get to that stage. And people are realizing and seeing it when they watch the videos, okay, this is
real life.
Yeah. This is real life and it's real hard training. And, if I want to get to the level that these guys are at, this is what I need to be doing.
That is true, man. What's the most important lesson you want young fighters to learn about your journey?
The most important lesson I want young fighters to learn about my journey. You come with these deep questions, it's good.
I'm sorry, man.
No, it's good. If it can go out there and help anyone, then it's all good. About my journey, that I'm sure a lot of it that they know, the journey's not going to be in a straight line. It's not just going to be a straight climb. There's going to be setbacks, like what you touched on. There's going to be setbacks, downfalls, all kind of things that obstacles in your way. And just know that throughout all of it, you can always come out of it. You can always get over it. You can always get past it. There's always a way. As bad as it, and that's just not in just the ring. That's also in life. No matter how, it's touching that we're talking about this in June, which is Men's Mental Health Month. So it's important for everyone in the ring and outside the ring to understand. There's always a way through. No matter how bad a situation is, there's always something that you can do positively to change it. Always, doesn't matter how bad a situation seems, how, as you said, as the game's gone, there's no, there's no giving up on the game's gone. You could be 3-0 down, looking at the best team in the world. We had that conversation earlier, looking at Liverpool in the Champions League, 3-0 down at halftime against Milan in the Champions League final. Exactly. At that point, many was thinking game's gone. Game wasn't gone, So there's always something you can do. You can always pull it back from however bad it is, and that's what I want young fighters to understand. In training, in training, I want them to know that in the fights, no matter how bad a fight may seem, you can always turn it around. However bad the situation is, you can always do and come back from it. Always, if you're still, if your heart's still beating, there's a reason that you're here. So there's a reason. There's something more that you've got to do. There's something more you can do. Because if that wasn't the case, you'd be dead.
Yeah, true. What mindset do you think separates good fighters from great fighters?
What mindset? A resilient mindset, for one. You get good talented fighters. You get good talented fighters that when they meet certain obstacles or they have certain setbacks, that's it, they're done. They're finished. They can't come back.
Do you think everyone's a great fighter?
No.
Do you think I'm a great fighter? Do you think if I was to jump on the field, I'd be a great fighter?
I don't know you that well to make that judgment.
Fair.
But
okay.
Everyone's got the potential to be a great fighter. Everyone has. Everyone's got that something in them that, if triggered, you'd see a great fighter. Not only just in the ring, but just in life, overcoming certain challenges. Like It could be at work, job, schooling, whatever it is. You know, and kind of thing. One of the things I kind of shout out to my guys, if they're struggling or if they're, you know, they're feeling like they want to give up, you'll see a great fighter. If, for example, this, you know, like when they're at their most tired, they're leaning on the ropes, they're feeling, you know, they can't do any more. I say to them, if this building caught fire now, how quickly would you get out of this building? Would tiredness be a factor? Of course not. They'd be out like that.
True.
Or if they went home and there was an intruder in the house,
What are you gonna do?
you're gonna fight.
Of course.
If you don't run, you're gonna fight. Or somebody, and the other thing I remind them as well, if someone slapped your mum, how much of a great fighter would you be? How much aggression would come out then? It would be there. There'll be no tiredness. There'll be no fear. You'd be on job instantly. You know, so everyone's got that potential to be that great fighter. It's just how they harness that energy, you know, how they can tap into themselves, find that energy, find that warrior spirit, and bring it out. It might be on the football pitch, it might be in the ring, it might be at work, it might be wherever it is, but everyone's got that potential. Because being a fighter isn't just throwing hands. Being a fighter is a mindset first. And it's, you know, it's just where you push that energy.
And what would you say? What role does discipline play in fighting? Because I know discipline is a big,
Very big,
thing.
very big. Without that discipline, you're not gonna maximize what you've got. You know, as I said, you could be a talented athlete, but if you're late for every training session or indisciplined in your running and your eating and doing your strength work and stuff, you know, the talent's only going to get you so far, but that discipline is what's going to make you a hard worker. And as they say, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And it takes discipline to be that hard worker.
Yeah, because I actually want to ask you, what role does discipline play in turning dreams into reality? You just answered that perfectly.
Yeah, you're right there and then, everything. Discipline is everything.
Yeah, that's true, man. You've actually inspired me a lot, man. I'm not going to lie. And hopefully one day I do actually come down to the gym, because you actually invited me down.
Yeah, when we started, I said, you know, because I want everyone to learn
That's the first thing he said to me is that when you come to my gym.
Yeah, exactly that. And, you know, not just my gym, I just want everyone to learn some form of boxing or martial art, because I realised from my own experience, it forces you to learn about yourself. You learn what you are under pressure. You learn to deal with pressure and overcome that pressure. You learn what you are or who you are when you're tired or when you're scared or, you know, when you don't want to do something, but you have to do it. And as you practice and continue training, you learn how to overcome those feelings. You know, you learn about what you are, what you're like when you're in them situations, which is beneficial for everyone in society, not just fighters.
Why do you think people should choose you to train them and not someone else? Why do you think you're the perfect trainer?
Because I am. Because what makes me different from others
Come on, man, market yourself.
Yeah, no, it's fine. You know, people say that I talk a lot, which I probably do, but I'm humble with it. But no, I'm not. I am. Why train with me? Because I still live everything that I push out for fighters or for people in life and in general, and I try and assess everyone as an individual and see, okay, you know, if someone's I don't try and mold everybody to fight the same way or a certain type of way. So I like to look and see, okay, what is people's strengths? And then build on what their own strengths are, improve what their weaknesses are, but build on everyone's individual strengths. And then on top of that, I've just got a passion for seeing people just become the best they can. You know, it's a passion that I've had from my own coach, who, you know, pushed me beyond what a coach does, and that's what I do for my others, for the guys that I train. You know, some of the guys, you know, I do this I don't do it for the money. I've trained some of these guys for free. And I'll wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and have these guys out running down by the Thames like we used to do, just because I love doing the sport. And that's one of the things that you'll see with good coaches. They love doing it. It's not a job. And as hard as it is, and it is, training and coaching fighters, people think, oh, you know, all you do is just go in there and shout at people. It's not. You've got to be switched on from start to finish. You're working hard. Certain days I'm finishing, I'm drenched in sweat, like I've been training, getting sweat, other people's sweat flying in my face, getting kicked. And, yeah, you know, you get guys that are throwing punches, miss the punch, and they're hitting you in the face or kicking you, and you know, so your body still goes through the same work. But where I love doing it's hard, but it's not a job. I'd wake up and do this for free, as I have done. Even during the lockdown, we had no gym to train at, and I was out there training guys in
the car
Stratford.
park,
Was doing it in Waitrose car park in Stratford.
Yeah,
I was doing it in the Olympic Park in Stratford as well, and just encouraging people just to train. Like, you're not going to stop me from training. That's what I do. That's who I am. You know, I want to train myself. I want to see other people train just for the benefits.
I like that.
So when you've got that kind of passion, that's what's going to separate me from other coaches who on Christmas Day, oh, it's Christmas, I'm with the family, I'm closing the gym. I've
No
worked
excuses, innit?
I've worked 7 days a week since this gym opened. The gym opened last year, June. The only 2 days I wasn't in the gym was where I was traveling with fighters to go to their fights, one in Abu Dhabi and one in France. Other than that, I'm in the gym from 6, 7 o'clock in the morning till 10, 11 o'clock at night. And that's what's going to separate me from other coaches who do it because it's a job or do it because they're doing it for the money. So when it's Boxing Day, Christmas Day, New Year's Day, oh, I'm closed, no, it's family time, it's this and that. Yeah, you have family time, you have balance, but this is life. This is what it is.
Mm-hmm. That's mad, can't I? Yeah. You literally just touched up on that. Literally no excuses, no matter what whatsoever.
None.
Yeah.
None. No excuses given and no excuses accepted.
Mm-hmm.
Once you have that mentality, then okay, I've got to do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's exactly that. There's no excuse. It has to be done. And once you get that mentality, it will get done.
Mm-hmm.
That's the same with anything in life, sports, business. Once you have the mentality, it's got to be done.
Yeah.
It'll be done.
I hope young fighters take this episode a lot
Yeah.
from your story.
Yeah, me too. I want to try and,
Yeah.
inspire as many as possible just to, and as I say, it's always boils down to just recognizing their potential. Everyone's got the potential to be great. I believe everyone on this planet has a skill that they can do better than someone else on the planet, that they can use to make money, that they can use to be happy and better their life. Once they learn and realize what that skill is, they can, develop that skill and progress through life. Mm-hmm. Everyone has that. So it's a case of tapping into it, building on it, going past all the obstacles, challenges, and then being the best they can be. Everyone's here for a reason. We're not here just, we're not here just by chance. You're here for a reason. You're doing this for a reason. This may be your calling. This may be leading you on to bigger and better things.
Yeah. Floyd Mayweather, I'm trying to have you.
Yeah, whatever it is, but it's for a reason.
Yeah, true.
If it wasn't, you'd be out running the street doing foolishness or, in a much worse situation. So, that's what I want everyone to see and realize as well.
Nah, true, man. I want to touch on something funny, yeah? Hold on. I want to touch on something funny, yeah? You posted on your TikTok, you had a picture in 2013 in Thailand.
Good.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the take picture.
The take picture.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Well, I was on it was a reality show in Fusion, yeah. So I was on a reality show where they put 16 or 18 fighters in a house, similar, to like the Ultimate Fighter. Put all the fighters in the house, they do challenges, and at the end of the week, you fight one of the guys from an opposing team. If you win, you stay in the house. If you lose, you go home.
Okay.
He was on one of the earlier series, and on that particular one, he was a commentator. So he was out there with us. I've known these guys, I know them well, him and Tristan, from the circuit.
What they like?
What they like? Exactly what you see. They're real with it. Yeah, they're real with it. They speak from the heart. They're both intelligent guys. They're both focused and determined to succeed. And like what you see on camera is a lot of who they are. They, as I say, they don't mince their words, as everyone knows. Yeah. They speak facts and they speak what they see, and that's what I like about them. They don't hide behind what they believe in. And they speak the truth. They speak their truth, I should say.
Yeah. Was there ever a time where you actually had a spar together? Or?
Yeah, we trained together out there.
Was it like training with Tristan?
Like people say, like a lot of people when they see that picture, like, oh, what's he like? I can't believe it. Andrew Tate, or you met Andrew Tate.
Even me, I looked at it, I was like, no way.
Yeah. But like when we're on the circuit, imagine like you play like because we're from different gyms. Like he used to train at Storm Gym in Luton. Okay. And then I was at KO Gym in North London from then. But like we're at different gyms. We see each other on the circuit like all the time. So I've seen him. Imagine like you play for a football team in East London, and he's at another football team. Yeah. So at different tournaments, you'll see him. When you're down at Hackney Marshes, you'll see him there. Okay. So everyone on the Muay Thai circuit knows him. We used to see him all the time. Okay. So when he then blew up and it's like, oh, Andrew Tate, it's like, here's Andrew. Storm Gym. I know his coach very well, Amir, and Tristan as well. And as I said, we was out there in Thailand with them. I've done, I think, 2 or 3 shows that we was out there in Thailand with them. So, yeah, it's just Andrew.
Yeah, nah. I actually like it, how you wasn't surprised about how he is now. Because a lot of people, look at him, I think, oh, he's gone.
No, I wasn't not so surprised. Like, obviously, I know how he is. I've known him for
Yeah.
years. I was just more surprised about how huge,
He's
how huge he went. Because that was like, they're talking about him in Parliament. He had. He was huge. At one point, I think he was the most Googled man on the planet. Just before they pulled out some charges for him, but his rise to notoriety was huge.
Yeah, no, true, man. I want to touch on the gym a bit more. You've had a lot of people coming to your gym. You've had Bouncer coming to your gym, I think. You had the Beta Squad coming to your gym. How was that like when...
Big Nasty was down there as well.
Big Nasty as well, yeah.
Yeah.
How was it like having these guys in your gym, man?
No, it's good. That shows me that, a lot of things that we're doing in training is being seen and being recognised. It's encouraging people to come down. I've got a lot of other guys that have messaged me, that I'm trying to line up when they can come in and do some filming as well to get some good content. It's good having guys like that in the gym because I can also learn from them. I sat down and had a conversation with Bouncer and Big Nasty. I'm actually still in contact with him. We sat down and spoke about business for a good 2 hours after one of the training sessions. So it's good for me to then learn about guys that are doing big things in other industries to learn, okay, what is it that makes them tick? What is it that's got them to where they are? And then what can I learn from that and take and, push myself further in now business rather than just being a coach or just being a fighter. What can I push in my business and what mindset can I take to instill in myself but also push towards my fighters as well that's going to help them. As I said, I'm always learning, not just from fighting. I learn from everywhere I can. So it's really good to have people like that around that can also inspire me to do better and be more and do better. So yeah, it's a good thing. And as I said, it shows that the videos that we're putting out, they're being recognised and they're being seen and they're inspiring people to want to try it and get in there and do the same thing.
That's true. And my last question for you today is, what's next for Daniel Sam? In terms
of
next? Life, just anything in general.
Yeah, we're still building. We're still building the legacy, the Black Diamond Gym. We've got certain projects that we want to do with it, branching out. So there's lots of things we want to build on with the gym, with family life as well. I've now got 9 children.
Okay.
And a grandson that I want to see the kids and the family grow and develop and them blossom as well. So there's life doesn't stop just because I'm not fighting. I'm busier now, a lot busier now than I was when I was actually fighting. So it's a case of I'm here trying to juggle this and things are falling. I'm trying to hold everything together and so there's lots going on, lots that I'm trying to build on, and hopefully the world will see more of what we're putting out.
No, that's big up. Big up, man. Obviously, I want to thank you for jumping on.
Yeah, thank you for having us on.
Jumping on the Games Gone podcast because this is what it's all about. I want to have people on like you telling your story, but not the story that we always hear. The story that goes on behind the scenes that doesn't get recognized. I had another guy, like I told you earlier, he played for Man United, Josh Harrop, and he had a deeper story. And people do want to hear that because it's not something that we hear on social media.
Yeah.
And it's just like one day, like if I was to leave the game, I want to leave the game on a good note. And so I called it The Game's Gone. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's just I want to highlight it so that I can inspire, same way you plan to inspire fighters, I want to inspire other people like creators, footballers, fighters, doctors, lawyers, anyone in it to like never give up because
for sure.
Because everyone hears about the high life, the success, winning things, I've done this, I've done that, I made X amount, and that's what gets them inspired. But it's not about, people don't hear about the sacrifices, the dedication, the struggles it takes to get to where you are.
Yeah, for sure.
They just
see as
which is what I plan to do.
Yeah, they just see what's going on under the lights and they don't realise everyone's got a story. Everyone's got a story.
That's what I'm saying.
Ups and downs, and not everyone wants to share it, but sharing it as much as you can, it can also inspire. Even if it's just one person, it can help. Yeah. And I think everyone's story should be
heard.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I want to say thank you for jumping on.
Cool.
It's been a while since we've been into contact.
Yeah.
But we managed to make it happen. I want to say thank you
for
jumping on. And
good.
Yeah, that's the end. Guys, that's the end of the second episode of the Games Gone podcast with none other than ranked #1 Muay Thai fighter Daniel Sam
And coach.
and coach. Make sure you guys come down to the Black Diamond Gym in Ilford.
Yes.
Yeah, he will train you. If you guys want to become world-class fighters, he's the guy. It's not free. It's not promo. It's not. It's free promo. So come down. I'm gonna come down myself.
Yeah, make sure you do.
Yeah, I will. I
Come
will. I
down
will. I
and
will.
vomit and get slapped. And, yeah.
Yeah, nah, I'll definitely come down. Yeah, but nah, make sure you guys go like, comment, and subscribe. Guys, like I always say, let me know who you guys want me to bring on as the next guest. Floyd Mayweather, Conor McGregor, Ronaldo, Messi, anyone. I'll make it happen. Same I got Daniel Sam here, I can bring anyone here.
That's
That's
the mentality.
That's the
Make
mentality.
anything happen. That's
yeah,
right.
yeah. So also make sure you guys go check out on Spotify. Apple Music, Apple Podcasts is still in the works. Trying to get that done. But make sure you guys go follow up the Instagram, go subscribe to the YouTube, and follow us on TikTok. Same way, guys, go follow up Daniel Sam, on all social media. When I'm posting the link in the description too.
Best.
Anyways, guys, take care. Peace.